The world is drowning in debt, and nobody wants to admit it. From Washington to Tokyo, governments are borrowing like there's no tomorrow. But what happens when tomorrow finally arrives? There's a group of powerful investors. Some call them the bond vigilantes, who hold the power to crash entire economies just by losing faith in government debt. We've seen it happen before, in the UK, in Italy, even in ancient empires, and it can happen again. After World War II, governments began borrowing heavily to rebuild their shattered nations. It made sense. Today, the world's debt, compared to its economic output, is right back at those 1945 levels. But this time, it's not just about rebuilding. Every new crisis, from the financial meltdown in 2008 to the global pandemic, from wars to soaring inflation, has pushed countries deeper and deeper into debt. At first, borrowing seemed harmless, even smart. It fueled growth and funded essential services. But, like any addiction, it never stopped there. The initial hit wasn't enough, and the dose just kept getting bigger. This has led us into what experts call a debt spiral. It's a simple, terrifying concept. Borrowing money just to pay for old borrowing. Think about it like a credit card. You can't pay this month's bill, so you take out a new, bigger credit card to pay it off, plus a little extra for spending. Except governments are doing this with trillions of dollars. Every year, the hole just gets deeper. Back in 2010, we called it stimulus. In 2020, we called it survival. Now, it's just normal. As investor Ray Dalio warned, when debts accumulate and interest payments accumulate, the spiral begins. It's a quiet trap that tightens its grip year after year until there's no easy way out. This is where the bond market gets its revenge. The bond vigilantes are the invisible force in the global economy. They aren't an organized group, just a collection of investors, funds, and banks who buy and sell government debt. When they get nervous about a country's ability to pay them back, they demand higher interest rates. And when bond yields rise, a government's borrowing costs explode, crushing economies almost overnight. We saw this play out in the UK in 2022. The new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, announced a massive, unfunded tax cut. The bond market panicked. They saw it as reckless borrowing. In a matter of days, borrowing costs for the UK government skyrocketed. The effects were immediate. Mortgages soared for ordinary people. Markets panicked, and in just 44 days, the Prime Minister was gone. It was a brutal, real-world example of how quickly the market can punish a government that it believes has lost control. Now, let's talk about the United States, the heart of the global debt system. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency, And U.S. government bonds are seen as the safest investment on the planet. But even this financial superpower is playing a dangerous game. The numbers are shocking. Last year, the U.S. government spent $880 billion just on interest payments for its debt. That's more than its entire defense budget. A staggering 25%, a quarter of all tax revenue collected by the U.S. government, now goes directly to paying interest. Not to building roads, not to funding schools, but just to service its old debt. If the U.S. bond market, the bedrock of the global financial system, ever breaks, the entire world's economy shakes. And the cracks are already showing. But there's one country that seems to have defied this rule, at least for a while: Japan. Japan has the highest debt-to-GDP ratio in the developed world, a truly massive mountain of borrowing. Yet, it hasn't collapsed. Why? There are a few key reasons. First, most of Japan's debt is owned by its own citizens and institutions, not by foreign investors who can pull their money out quickly. Second, the Central Bank of Japan has kept interest rates near zero for decades, making the debt cheap to manage. But this system is a high-wire act. It works only as long as people trust their government and, more importantly, trust their money. If that trust ever falters, Japan's quiet debt story could become a very loud warning for the rest of the world. And it seems Europe is finally joining the party. For years, Germany was seen as the symbol of fiscal discipline, the continent's responsible adult. But now, even Germany is borrowing billions for defense spending and green energy projects. Meanwhile, countries like France and Italy are already struggling with high debt and very weak economic growth. It's like the last sober guest at the party has finally picked up a drink. With every major economy now committed to borrowing, the question isn't if a crisis will come, but when, and who will be the first to fall. The safety net that once existed is gone. Everyone is in the same boat, and it's starting to take on water. So, what happens next? There are really only two ways out, and both are painful. The first option is austerity, massive cuts to government spending. It leads to economic pain, slower growth, and unhappy voters. Politicians fear austerity for a reason. The second option is to inflate the debt away. By allowing inflation to run high, a government can effectively reduce the real value of its debt over time. But this is a hidden tax on everyone, especially savers. Your money in the bank becomes worth less and less each year. Voters hate inflation just as much as they hate spending cuts. But one of them is coming. As the old saying goes, something's got to give. The path of endless borrowing is a dead end. Low interest rates made it seem like there was no cost, no consequence. But free money always comes with a price. We've just been putting it on a global credit card, kicking the can down a very long road. But that road is coming to an end. The ultimate question is this: when the world's lenders, the investors who have funded this multi-decade spending spree, finally stop believing, what happens next? Every empire in history thinks it can borrow forever. None ever has. Thanks for watching.